They're lying to you. Straight up. The government, the media, the bureaucrats, all of them. And while you're distracted by some celebrity breakup or another TikTok trend, Jim Chalmers is sneaking in a tax so devastating it could obliterate the Aussie dream before you even know what hit you. This isn't some tinfoil hat conspiracy. This is cold, hard policy, and it's already started. Before we dive into Jim Chalmers' tax nightmare, where your home's value gets taxed before you even sell it, retirees get robbed blind, and the Albanese government pretends it's all fairness, smash that like button like you're deleting your last tax return in protest. Subscribe if you're sick of watching Australia get looted by its own treasurer. And grab the Tax Me If You Dare shirt. Wear it to your next protest, town hall, or just down to the servo while calculating your net worth for the ATO. Links in the description. Keep the fight loud. Jim Chalmers, the bloke who reckons he's fixing the economy, is about to tax Aussies on money they haven't even made. I'm not talking about dodgy offshore profits or billionaire yacht fuel. I'm talking about the house your nan bought in the 80s. The family farm that's been in your bloodline for generations. That investment property your parents scraped every dollar to buy. If it's gone up in value, even just on paper, Jim Chalmers wants a piece. Whether you sell or not. Let me break it down real clear for you. It's called a tax on unrealized gains. Sounds boring, right? That's the trick. They dress it up with technical jargon so you switch off. But here's what it means. Say your home went from $600,000 to $1 million over the years. Congrats, right? No, not under Jim Chalmers. Now you'll owe tax on that $400,000 difference, even if you haven't sold it, even if you're struggling to pay the mortgage, even if your fridge is held shut with duct tape and your kids are eating toast for dinner. This is theft, legal theft, and it's being sold to you as progress. And Jim Chalmers? Mate, he's not just behind this push. He's the bloody front man. With that rehearsed grin and smooth talk, he's pretending this is just a tweak for the ultra-rich. But here's the kicker. That $3 million threshold? It doesn't move with inflation. So what sounds like a tax on millionaires today will hit average Aussies tomorrow. It's a slow burn. Just like boiling a frog. Think this is only going to hurt the rich? Think again. Farmers, they're already screaming. They own land, not cash. But Chalmers doesn't care. Land goes up in value. Tax it. Doesn't matter if that farm's feeding half the country, you're getting hit. Mum and dad investors who've got a couple rentals for retirement, whacked. Retirees in Sydney whose homes have skyrocketed in value since the 90s, slammed. And here's the real dirty bit. Jim Chalmers wrote in an exemption. Yep, not for you. For his boss. Albanese gets to defer this tax till retirement. You'll pay it while still working. You'll be slogging away at the job site or the office, while Big Al coasts on taxpayer dollars with special treatment. Tell me again how that's fair. This isn't just a bad policy. It's an extinction-level event for the middle class. And mate, once that goes, we're all stuffed. Because here's the reality no one's telling you. The billionaires? They've got lawyers. They've got trusts, shell companies, Cayman Island bank accounts. They won't feel a thing. But us? The workers? The savers? The small business battlers? We'll cop it hard. Already, think tanks and policy nerds are testing the waters. Behind closed doors, they're running models, drafting regulations, floating it in quiet press releases. That's how they do it. They don't announce it with a bang. They seep it into law like a slow gas leak. And by the time you notice something stinks, it's too late. Let me paint you a picture. You're a 60-year-old tradie. You worked your whole life, invested in a couple of modest rentals. You plan to live off that income after retirement. Then Chalmers policy kicks in. Suddenly you're getting a tax bill for gains you haven't touched. To pay it, you sell a property, crash the market, or dip into your super. And just like that, your retirement dreams are gone. Poof. Erased by a guy who's never done a hard day's work outside Parliament House. And don't buy the bull about making the tax system fair. If fairness was the goal, Jim Chalmers wouldn't be cutting sweetheart deals with the Greens and letting his boss off the hook. This is about money, Cold, hard cash. The government spent too much during COVID, they racked up debt, and now they're looking to claw it back from you. But it gets worse. You reckon this tax will stop at property? Think again. Once they've built the machinery to tax unrealized gains, to assess and value your assets yearly, they won't stop. Trusts, shares, businesses, hell, even your car if it goes up in value. You think I'm joking? Look at the precedent. They already do it with fringe benefit taxes. It starts with the top 1% and trickles down like a blocked drain. Here's the dirty secret. Jim Chalmers knows this will wreck the housing market. He knows it'll scare off investment. He knows retirees will suffer. That's not an accident. It's the plan. Collapse the private system so the government can step in. Own the rental stock. Expand public housing. Control who gets what, when, and how. You think it's about helping people? Nah. It's about control. And what about renters? If you think you're safe because you don't own property, you're dreaming. Landlords are going to jack up rents to cover this insane tax. And if they can't, they'll sell. Fewer rentals, more competition, skyrocketing prices, people sleeping in cars, families living in tents, housing queues stretching for miles. That's where we're headed. And Jim Chalmers? Mate, he'll be fine. He's not missing meals. He's not checking his bank balance before buying groceries. While you're watching your life savings bleed out, he's flying business class to some summit to talk about sustainable finance with bureaucrats who've never even set foot in a Bunnings. But here's the biggest betrayal. They're framing this as closing loopholes, as if working hard, buying a home, and planning your retirement is some kind of scam. Since when did building a life in Australia make you a villain? And look, I know some of you will say, Saad, you're overreacting. They'd never tax something you haven't sold. Well, guess what? They already are. Quietly, in parts of the superannuation system. It's here. It's happening. They're just calling it by a different name. First, they introduce the idea. Then they trial it. Then they expand it. That's how policy works in this country. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. And do you know who's cheering this on? Tech billionaires and city elites who think farmland is just a number on a spreadsheet. They don't get it. They don't get what it means to own something with blood, sweat, and tears. They've never fixed a fence line in the pouring rain or driven 60 kilometers for diesel because the local servo ran dry. But they'll decide what your land is worth. And if it goes up, taxed. If it drops, well, too bad, you already paid. And here's a gut punch. Say your asset drops in value after you've paid tax on it. Do you get a refund? Course not. It's all risk. No safety net. Pay now, cry later. That's the Chalmers way. And don't even get me started on the ethics. Since when is it moral to tax something that doesn't even exist yet? Would you pay tax on a lotto ticket before you scratch it? Would you pay tax on a job you might get next year? Of course not. But Jim Chalmers thinks it's perfectly fine to tax your future like it's already in your pocket. This isn't policy. It's punishment. And what's next? A wealth register. A digital ID linked to your assets, flagging you for an audit every time your crypto wallet jumps 10%? Don't laugh. It's already being discussed, all under the guise of transparency. But what it really means is total control. You'll be scanned, tracked, taxed, and ranked, not by what you earn, but by what you own. The digital surveillance state is already creeping in. Facial recognition, biometric databases, QR check-ins, social credit style systems, and now your assets will be next. One wrong move, one delayed tax payment, and suddenly you're a financial risk, flagged, frozen, fined, and no one will come to help because they'll be too scared to speak up. And let's talk farmers again, because they're being absolutely shafted. Jim Chalmers clearly doesn't care about the bush. Generational farms being taxed off the map because some pencil pusher in Canberra reckons their paddock's worth more now. Not because they sold it, not because they profited, but just because someone updated a spreadsheet. This isn't tax reform. It's land theft. And once that land is sold, it doesn't go back to Aussie families. It goes to multinationals, developers, foreign investors, people who don't give a damn about country towns, soil health, or local jobs. And when that happens, rural Australia dies, quietly, while Jim Chalmers is busy tweeting about economic justice. You reckon I'm mad? You should be too. Because this is your future. Your parents' retirement. Your kids' chance at a home. Your dream of financial independence. And they're turning it into dust, one policy at a time. And here's the final slap in the face. If you speak out, you're labelled selfish, greedy, a conspiracy theorist. Mate, I'm not against tax. I'm against theft. There's a difference. And what Jim Chalmers is doing is robbing ordinary Aussies blind while pretending to be their saviour. But it's not too late. We can still stop this, but only if we wake up, if we speak out, if we share this message like your house depends on it, because it bloody well does. You've got to call your MPs, flood their inboxes, show up to community forums, make it loud, make it public, because silence is what they're counting on. And once it's law, reversing it will be near impossible. They want a nation of renters, of dependents, of people who ask permission to live their lives. That's not the Australia I signed up for. That's not the country we were promised. This is a warning, a line in the sand. We either fight this now or accept that from this day forward, we'll pay for things we don't even own yet. And that, mate, is the scariest future I can imagine. And while we're all distracted by the smoke and mirrors of rising interest rates and grocery bills that feel like robbery, Jim Chalmers is standing at the helm of the biggest wealth heist in Aussie history. And he's calling it policy. He's not even subtle about it anymore. They've floated the idea in Parliament. They've leaked it to friendly media outlets. And now they're just waiting for the next crisis to ram it through under the banner of emergency reform. Mate, they already did it with lockdowns. Why wouldn't they do it again with your money? Now think about this. What happens when we set the precedent that asset values alone are taxable? What happens when you build something with sweat and patience, only to be punished for it going up in value? Say you've been running a corner cafe for 20 years. One day, a developer opens a shopping mall nearby, and the area's property value shoots up. Suddenly, your shop, your only super plan, your only ticket to retirement, is worth more. You don't sell, you don't cash in, but you get hit with a tax anyway, for just existing in a postcode that's now worth more on paper. Jim Chalmers will tell you this is about modernising the system. What he won't say is, it's about squeezing blood from stones. When you can't raise income tax without revolt, when the economy's tanking, and when your government is addicted to spending like a tradie on payday, you look elsewhere. And the easiest, laziest, most destructive place to look is the working class, the ones who've played by the rules, who didn't dodge tax, who didn't hide money offshore, the ones who believed in this country. And don't be fooled by the clever PR lines. They'll throw out buzzwords like equity, social fairness, and closing loopholes. But they won't mention that Jim Chalmers and his Labour cronies are designing a tax that'll gut pensioners, builders, sole traders, and anyone who owns more than a bloody ute. They won't tell you that the very people who gave their lives to building Australia, brick by brick, will be forced to sell their homes just to keep up with tax bills for profits they never even made. Let's not forget the sneaky little trick of not indexing the $3 million cap. Today, you might be laughing, thinking, no worries, mate, I'm nowhere near that. But give it 10 years, 15 max, with property prices the way they're going, and you'll be right in the firing line. Jim Chalmers knows it. He's banking on your ignorance. By the time you wake up to it, your accountant's on the phone saying you owe tens of thousands in tax, and you've got no idea where it's coming from. Now here's where things get truly dystopian. Once they've got you on the hook with these unrealized gains taxes, they'll need a system to keep track of it all. Enter the digital asset register. Every property, every investment, every car, every crypto wallet logged and monitored by the government. You think your financial life is private? Not under Jim Chalmers. Under his vision, your net worth isn't just tracked, it's weaponized. Miss a payment. Account frozen. Sell an asset for less than they predicted? Too bad, you already paid the tax. The scariest bit? This will become normal. Just like digital check-ins did. Just like censorship online. Just like being told you can't travel 5 kilometers from your house because someone in another postcode coughed. They normalize it, then make it permanent. Then, before you know it, your kids grow up thinking being taxed on imaginary money is just the way things work. And Jim Chalmers becomes the architect of the greatest generational wealth grab in modern history. All while pretending to be your mate from Rankin. And if you're wondering, why isn't anyone stopping this? Well, here's the truth. Most politicians in Canberra are either asleep at the wheel or in on the scam. The coalition makes noise, but when push comes to shove, they've rolled over plenty of times before. The Greens? Don't even get me started. They'll cheer this on like it's Christmas Day, all in the name of redistribution. Never mind the devastation it'll bring to the suburbs, the bush, the battlers. This is a bipartisan failure, and Jim Chalmers is just the latest villain wearing a treasurer's badge. And what happens when thousands of Aussies are forced to sell at once just to pay their tax bills? The market tanks, prices collapse, and who swoops in to buy everything for cents on the dollar? Not your average Aussie, that's for sure. It'll be hedge funds, foreign investors, government-backed developers. Jim Chalmers says this is about making housing more affordable, but what he's really doing is making it more available to the powerful. This isn't housing reform, it's asset transfer from the people to the system. And here's the kicker that most of the media won't even whisper. Once this model is embedded into law, there's nothing to stop them from applying it retroactively. That's right, Jim Chalmers and his bureaucratic mob could hit you with a backdated bill. Oh, your house gained in value between 2025 and 2028? You didn't pay tax on that. No worries, here's your bill, plus interest. It sounds criminal because it is, but they'll wrap it in legislation, smile at the press conference, and call it fiscal responsibility. You might be thinking, well, I don't own anything. I rent. This won't hit me. That's where you're wrong, mate. The ripple effect of this tax reaches everyone. Your rent will go up. Your boss's business might collapse. Your local butcher might shut down because he couldn't pay the tax on the land under his shop. The economy isn't a bunch of silos. It's all connected. And when you smash the people at the base of the pyramid, the whole bloody thing starts to wobble. Let's talk superannuation again, because that's where this all began. Jim Chalmers' first real move was to double the tax on earnings over $3 million. Sounds fine, right? Until you realize that figure doesn't move with inflation. Meaning by the time your kids retire, even average workers will be caught in that net. And here's the disgusting bit. Albanese's own portfolio. Exempt. Jim Chalmers wrote it in. Big Al gets to defer, paying that tax while he's still in the workforce. You'll pay it while you're still slogging it out to make ends meet. This is the new class war. And it's not rich versus poor. It's connected versus unconnected. It's insiders versus everyday Aussies. And at the helm of this quiet little revolution sits Jim Bloody Chalmers, grinning as he tears up the Australian dream one policy at a time. And don't for a second believe the media spin that Jim Chalmers is acting alone. The Albanese government is fully behind this, whispering sweet nothings into his ear while nodding along at every equity buzzword he chucks out. These aren't reforms. These are calculated dismantlings. And while they're pretending to fight for the working class, they're selling off every tool the working class needs to build a future. Super. Property. Independence. They're stripping it all back, selling it off, then pretending it's a win for fairness. Let me take you out bush for a minute. Picture a third-generation farmer in regional Queensland. His property's been in the family since the Depression. Every drought, every flood, every busted tractor. They survived it. just barely. And now, thanks to rising land values, not because of anything he's done, his property is worth a couple million on paper. Under Jim Chalmers' vision, this bloke will owe hundreds of thousands in tax on phantom profits. Not profits he can use. Not cash in hand. Just digits on a screen. Tell me how that's not absolute madness. And once he can't pay, he sells. Not to another farmer. Not to a local. But to a developer who's been circling like a hawk. The family legacy ends. The land gets paved. The region gets gutted. All because Jim Chalmers thought it was unfair that someone's land value had gone up. This is how you kill communities without firing a single shot. And the Albanese government, they'll sit there clapping, calling it progressive taxation. It's not progressive. It's predatory. But here's where it all goes completely off the rails. Chalmers and Coates have hinted at expanding this unrealized gains model to trusts, business shares, collectibles, even cryptocurrency. You bought a vintage Holden back in the day? It's appreciated? Cough up. You started a small online business and now it's growing? More taxes on the value of your equity. And if your crypto wallet spikes in value, they'll treat you like you just cashed out and expect a tax payment, even if you never sold a single coin. They've weaponized value itself. Doesn't matter if you earned anything, just that you might have. And God forbid you challenge it. The ATO is already armed to the teeth with surveillance powers. Under the guise of anti-fraud initiatives, they're tracking bank transfers, monitoring digital wallets, linking social media to financial data. Now imagine that married to a policy where every increase in perceived value triggers a tax event. It's not paranoia, it's a blueprint. And Jim Chalmers is scribbling away, drawing the lines, while everyone's too distracted with footy scores to notice. What they're building is a system of total compliance, not just to laws, but to valuation. If the government says your asset is worth more, you pay. If you disagree, good luck fighting it, because their valuation methods are secret, fluid, and designed to benefit the system, not you. It's feudalism with spreadsheets. And you're the modern peasant, paying tax not for what you produce, but for what someone else thinks your land is worth. Mate, this isn't a government. It's a cartel in high-vis vests. And here's the final insult. Jim Chalmers will keep calling this reform. He'll get on the ABC, surrounded by graphs and smug think tankers, and say this is about future-proofing Australia. Mate, if this is the future, it can get stuffed. There's nothing proofed about taxing people into oblivion. There's nothing smart about scaring off investment. There's nothing just about forcing retirees to sell their homes because some city bureaucrat reckons their postcode got a bit trendy. This is what happens when a treasurer like Jim Chalmers, who's never run a business, never built a house, never run a bloody tool across a workbench, is given the keys to the economy. He sees numbers, not people. He sees policy wins, not broken families. He sees balance sheets, not the young couple who just saved for 10 years to buy a 2-bedroom house in Penrith. And now that couple? Facing tax bills their parents never even dreamed of. That's not economics. That's economic vandalism. And while the government calls this the first step, you better believe it is only the first. Next comes the levy creep. You've already seen it. Fire levies, flood levies, temporary surcharges that never actually go away. Chalmers' genius is figuring out how to make those permanent and sneakier. A climate asset adjustment. A real estate equity contribution. It's the same tax, different name. And no one dares oppose it publicly, because they'll be accused of not caring about the environment or not doing their fair share. And don't think your super fund is safe either. Under Chalmers, super isn't your money. It's the state's reserve fund, a big juicy pool of assets just waiting to be rebalanced, redirected, or restructured in the name of national interest. You think you'll have a choice where your super gets invested? If this government gets its way, your retirement will be used to prop up failing green energy projects, collapsing real estate schemes, or government debt. And when it doesn't perform, bad luck, mate. Your money's already been realized, just not by you. And here's what keeps me up at night. Once they normalize this, the next generation will never know anything else. They'll grow up thinking it's normal to pay tax on a house you never sold, on crypto you never touched, on a farm you barely survived running. Jim Chalmers is building a new Australia, and it's not free, it's not fair, it's not even real. It's simulated ownership with the government holding the true deed. So what now? What do we do? First, wake up. This isn't some fringe issue, it's not something to worry about later, it's happening now. Second, speak up. Call your local MPs, blast their inboxes. Share this with every Aussie who owns a home, a farm, a bloody skateboard if it's worth anything. Third, resist. Not violently, but strategically. Financial literacy, diversification, legal challenges. If they want to pull us into the shadows, we need to shine a bigger torch. And don't let anyone shame you for pushing back. They'll try. They'll call you selfish, entitled, a boomer, but you're not. You're someone who worked hard, played by the rules, and wants to keep the country fair. It's Jim Chalmers and his smug little crew who are gaming the system, not you. Don't let them gaslight you into silence. This is not the Australia we were promised. And if we don't draw the line now, there won't be a line left to draw. See you in the next one. And don't forget to slap that like button like it just taxed your house before you even sold it. Oi! And if you're really fired up, grab the Tax Me If You Dare tee, wear it to the next rates protest, the next council meeting, or just your local servo while trying to figure out how to pay tax on money you never made. Stay loud, stay alert, and never stop fighting for the Australia Jim Chalmers is trying to wipe off the map.